There's no problem.
Thank you, DVC. I think this is the best time really to start. It's Buyi, if you are connected, please keep receiving people. I do see notices about people being in the lobby. Colleagues, good evening. Let me really say a very good evening. There is load shedding everywhere, but this program just has to start. This show must begin, load shedding or not. Welcome. This is part of the continuing series, in the conversations that have been launched to prepare for the inauguration of our new Vice Chancellor. And so this conversation will continue. And this is, I would say, this is probably the second of these webinars. And today's webinar is called Pathways to Scholarly Excellence. I'll share a little bit about that in a moment. We have 4 speakers lined up, actually 4 panelists. And this is going to be very informal, kind of town hall style, where colleagues will just share their experiences and we will learn or indeed get inspired by these experiences. So we will have the opportunity of introducing each of the panelists and just saying a few words about them in what I consider to be very brutally abridged CV. They gave us some very useful information, but we've gone ahead to keep on abridging just to be able to save time. My name is Wilson Akpan. I'm Professor Wilson Akpan. I'm the Senior Director for Research and Innovation, and I will be one of the pilots of today's flight. And because we really wanted absolute safety for everyone, we have 2 pilots today. Prof. Debele, you're the co-pilot. Please, could you introduce yourself? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Captain. I'm Professor Clevan Debele, Senior Director, Learning and Teaching. I'll be your co-pilot on this flight. Thank you.
Thank you, and we hope you're going to have a very, very beautiful flight with us. We're going to be flying for 2 hours, basically, and we're starting in a moment. And shortly, I will be inviting the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs and Research to welcome you. So whatever I'm doing now, I'm not doing it properly. You will get a proper welcome from the DVC of the university, well, DVC Academic Affairs. But perhaps a few words just to do what you may call housekeeping. You're all connected, therefore we are comfortably in our couches trying to take part in this conversation. If you are disconnected, please just rejoin. That is really all we can request. And if you want to speak, I think the best would be to raise your hand because we're quite many now. I think we will hit 100 before the event goes halfway. So just raise a hand. The 2 pilots will keep on checking the hands that are raised. And once you finish speaking, you put your hand down. And if you're not speaking, please mute your microphone just so that we have a very, very quiet background. And only those people who are speaking will be heard. And that will give us a very enjoyable moment of interaction. Prof. Ndebele, any housekeeping from that end?
None from my side so far.
Thank you. Now let's get started. Prof. Speckman, you are DVC Academic Affairs and Research. Would you please welcome everyone that's gathered, and very special welcome to our 4 panelists. And then we will launch in and introduce them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Program Director. Greetings to the Vice Chancellor, University management at all levels, staff in general, our students, external audience, and especially our panelists drawn from our university as well as outside our university. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the university to this webinar. It is, as Prof. Akpan had already said, the second in a series that are lined up from June to July and to August, end of August. So these 3 months, we will be doing the same thing, listening to you as well as making you listen to us. As the Vice Chancellor had said, we cannot only be talking to ourselves. It is good for us to hear what others say both in the university-wide community as well as outside of our university. But the idea of these webinars was to create a build-up to the Vice Chancellor's inauguration, which was scheduled for August this year. However, COVID-19 restrictions may interfere with that, and if that does happen, we shift it to the end of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said in another occasion, we cannot let go of an opportunity for us to showcase the fact that we have, for the first time in the history of this university and its legacy institutions, a Vice Chancellor who is female, a Vice Chancellor who is African, a Vice Chancellor who is from this area. And that cannot be done in private, which is why we pray that the more people put on their masks, the more people get their jabs, the better it will be for us as we plan to have a huge showcasing of the new Vice Chancellor. Various activities have been planned, starting with a focus on our vision last Thursday, the 3rd of June, which was teased out by 4 panelists from both internally as well as externally. Today, we are looking at developing excellent academic pathways for our emerging and future academics. We cannot hope for a bright future or the actualization of our vision as an African, for our vision, there's an echo, for our vision as a technology-infused African university that is impacting on our surroundings and on the country as a whole, unless we develop our own timber, unless we work closely with our own current, emerging, as well as future academics who will conduct research, who will teach, who will take us out to the communities. We have all along been claiming to be an African university, and correctly so, because that is who we are. However, due to historical reasons, we have only been doing that in as far as our geographical location is concerned. But this new vision that the university has adopted for itself and the activities and programs emanating from it take us beyond that to the content and meaning of being an African university. So our emerging and future academics are part of the critical mass that will take us there. You and all our stakeholders are part of that critical mass that will take us there. Our local communities, the province and private sector are our critical mass without which we can get there. I therefore invite you all to be part of our journey, the journey that started last week and the journey that will move us to the end of August. If you did not make up your mind last week after the webinar we had, please do so this week and commit yourself to becoming part of these webinars on the Thursdays or Wednesdays. They are set up and they will always take place after 4:30 when all of us are out of class or out of offices or out from work, when we are able to pay attention to what the university is doing. We look forward to the inputs of our 4 panelists. We know that they're all capable people selected because they have something to give us, but we also look forward to robust discussions that will come out of that. Hearing from the public, as I've said earlier, we cannot be talking to ourselves and listening to ourselves, but we also want to hear from public. Any constructive criticism is welcome. That will build us. It will take us to where we are going. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, it is my pleasure to hand you back to the pilots that have announced themselves, Prof. Ndebele and Prof. Akpan, and I trust that they will take you carefully through the program until you land safely. Thank you. Enjoy the webinar.
Thank you very much, DVC, for those warm and kind words of welcome. Companies, please let us mute. Okay. Thanks a bit for those words of welcome and giving us, if you like, a framing. What I want to do next is just give you a few words as a way of introducing the theme of today's webinar. To say, when we thought about having something titled Pathways to Scholarly Excellence, there's any number of ways we could have chosen. We could have chosen to get a keynote speaker to come give a talk, and then we learn from that. Or we could have just invited a research paper or invited somebody to give a lecture, but we said no. We will rather choose a different approach. We will look for 4 people, carefully selected people, some of them very, very young, very fresh in the academy, but in spite of that have achieved, literally punched above their weight. So we said we'll get people like that to come and share with us their journeys. Exactly what have they done right? How did they set themselves on the path to excellence? How did the stars align to get them to where they're going or to where they have, in fact, arrived? That's what we chose to do, to get 4 people who have achieved, some are really achieving. Let us share with them. Hopefully, they will be able to inspire the rest of us. In fact, when I communicated with one of them, he told me that if he is able to inspire even one person this evening, he will have considered his job done. And that is exactly what we wanted to do. So as a way of introducing a theme, we have chosen the theme, Pathways to Scholarly Excellence. We didn't say there is a pathway. We think that there could be different ways that people can move towards self-actualization in our profession. And that is exactly what we're going to be doing this evening. It is town hall style, it is conversational, it is testimonial, it is simply mutually engaging. So please feel absolutely free to engage with the panelists, listen to their stories, listen to their journeys. Who knows, you just might get inspired. That is by way of introducing the theme of our webinar this afternoon. Prof. Ndebele, I will move over to you now to introduce our first panelist. I would say probably as you call the name, the colleague can then maybe switch on their video for the duration of your introduction, and then we will just introduce 4 of them in turn. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Professor Akpan. Allow me the pleasure, colleagues, to introduce our first panelist for the evening, Professor Emeritus Chrissy Bowie. If you can briefly put your video, Professor Bowie, so that the audience can be able to see you. Professor Bowie, colleagues, is a scholar of higher education who also has extensive experience of higher education management, having served as a Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and Student Affairs at Rhodes University until mid-2019. She now devotes all her time to research and doctoral supervision.
Can
She is a
somebody
member of the...
stop sharing and so that we can see Prof. Bowie? Somebody is sharing the agenda. Thank you.
Prof. Akpan, if you can stop sharing the agenda so we can see Professor Bowie. Yes, there we are. There is Professor Bowie, colleagues. Professor Bowie is a member of editorial boards of a number of international journals, including Teaching in Higher Education Research and Development, and the International Journal of Academic Development. She has recently been appointed as an associate editor of the South African Journal of Science. She is also currently working with our own staff at WSU on a course on the scholarship of teaching and learning, which seeks to see each staff member publish an article on their work as academic teachers as part of the outcome of this project. Colleagues, Professor Bowie has a very rich CV, and I just took a synopsis. Professor Chrissy Bowie, allow me the pleasure to hand over the floor to you to reflect with us on pathways to scholarly excellence from your own view. Over to you.
Prof, on mute, I think you.
Okay.
Please unmute, Prof.
Right. Thank you,
you.
Prof. Ndebele. And thank you very much for inviting me this afternoon. It's a real honor. And I'm very pleased to see many old friends in the participant list, people that I've worked with at Walter Sisulu over the years in various capacities. So my field, higher education studies, some would call it the scholarship of teaching and learning. Well, the term excellence has been critiqued by some of the foremost scholars in the field. And much of the critique of the idea of excellence draws on the idea that there are no published criteria for what is excellent. Rather, the criteria for what's excellent are hidden. And often the people who get to decide what's excellent are powerful people, and often those people are in the global north. So the idea of, you know, research excellence in higher education studies, the argument would go, is dominated by thinkers in the global north. So in my work, sort of drawing on those critiques of excellence, first of all, I think that the only way you can give some meaning to the term excellence is that you have to think about it in relation to the context. So I think work is excellent in a particular context. And of course, my context is South African higher education. So what in South African higher education can excellence mean? What can excellent scholarship mean in the field of higher education studies? Well, I believe very strongly that it has to involve a concern with social justice. I think that scholarship has to be concerned with the fact that persistently Black South Africans have fared less well in higher education than their white peers. If you're not familiar with the data that underlies that observation, you only need to look at the Council on Higher Education's Vital Stats series, and you can get that on the web very easily. And those annual statistics based on HEMAS data show that regardless of the institution at which they're registered, the subject area they're studying, and the kind of qualification for which they're aiming, Black students drop out more, they have slower throughput, and so on, than their white peers. Now, you have to ask why that is so. How can it be that 25 years more after the election, we've still got this situation where Black students are still not getting a good deal out of higher education? And so that has been my driving interest in all my scholarship. And in order to pursue this interest, I draw on critical social theory, not educational theory. So I draw on theory developed in fields like sociology, anthropology, some linguistics, politics. So it's social theory, not so much educational theory. Why that? Why social theory? Well, perhaps some words on how I got to be a scholar of teaching and learning might help here. So I was the first in my family to go to a university, and I only went because I was funded by a scheme developed by the socialist government in the United Kingdom. So if you like, I was the equivalent in the UK of a NISFA student. I did English literature at a very prestigious British university, and I ended up completing a master's degree. I got the degree, and at a loss of anything else to do, I'm not sure what you could do with a master's degree in medieval English literature. I took a job teaching English in Spain, teaching English as a foreign language. And this was followed by more work, doing the same kind of work, teaching English as a foreign language in the Middle East, more specifically in Doha, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and finally in Yemen, in Sana'a, North Yemen. And this was at a time when Doha and Abu Dhabi, two cities I worked in, were nothing like the cities that they are today. And in all the time I was working in the Middle East, I was a woman in search of a theory. I'd done a specialist course in the teaching of English as a foreign language, and I'd been trained in the so-called best methods of teaching. But the problem was, those best methods didn't seem to work, and I couldn't understand why. And in my quest to understand why, I went back to university and I did another master's degree, this time in linguistics. So I had a master's degree in English literature, a specialist course in language studies, and then another master's degree in linguistics. But I was no better off. I was still left without an explanation for why the so-called best methods I'd been taught to use were less successful than they should have been, or I'd been taught to believe they should be, in the contexts in which I worked. I remember I was working in contexts in developing countries. I was working in Doha, in Abu Dhabi, in Yemen, at times when Yemen hasn't changed much. But Doha and Abu Dhabi were nothing like the countries they are now. They were really, really underdeveloped places. So all that studying, all that learning, I still don't think I was a successful teacher in those contexts. And it was
3 minutes
yeah.
left.
Okay. It was only when I ended up at the University of the Western Cape in the 1980s, and this was on a British aid project, that I found the theory I've been looking for. Theory which sought to explain why some marginalized groups, and you could say marginalized groups are the working class, the disadvantaged, and in my case, young Arab learners in rapidly developing countries, experience learning in ways the theories I'd been taught couldn't explain. So the identification of the potential of critical social theory as a way of explaining what I'd observed for so long as a teacher led me to register for a PhD. By this time, I was in my late 40s. I didn't get my PhD till I was 50, or nearly 50. I was a single parent of 2 boys with a full-time job and had to do any extra bit of workshopping and consulting that came my way to make ends meet. But I was passionate about the ideas, passionate about the ideas, and made a plan to, sorry, let me just get rid of that, made a plan to do the PhD by getting up early every day. I learned to work with my family around me, and to this day I can read while I'm cooking, while I'm stirring a pot in the kitchen. So my PhD thesis questioned the way students' language-related experiences were constructed or understood at one university in South Africa, and used an ethnography to talk back to those constructions. It was well received. I wrote up my proposal for doctoral research as an academic paper, arguing this was the kind of research that needed doing, and much to my surprise, the paper won a national award. I then managed to publish on my thesis in major international journals, although I think that the most important of the publications on my thesis is in a South African journal, the South African Journal of Higher Education. I deliberately chose the South African Journal as I wanted to engage in a conversation with South African colleagues. When I later applied for my NRF rating, the feedback was that I shouldn't publish in South African journals. But I knew that the chances of my paper being read by those who mattered, fellow academics in South Africa, if it was published in a South African journal, were much higher. So for me, choosing a South African journal was also about the pursuit of social justice. And I continue to argue with the NRF today about my choice of journals to publish in. I've continued to pursue my concern with social justice in my supervision. So to date, I've supervised over 20 doctoral theses to completion. And I very much see my role as a supervisor as that of a scholar promoting other academics. And I've always worked to get my students to publish post-thesis. My concern in all my work is overwhelmingly that a lot of work on higher education, and more specifically on the scholarship of teaching and learning, doesn't address social justice with sufficient rigor. I'm also concerned that a lot of the work comes out of the historically white universities when none of the researchers producing it have experienced the conditions at very different kinds of university. And my question is, how can you speak on behalf of a country if you've only ever worked in one very privileged kind of institution?
Thank you. Thank you.
Just one more sentence. We
Okay,
desperately need more work on subtle from those working in the historically disadvantaged universities. And to this end, I've been working with colleagues from Walter Sisulu this year on a course which will aim to see them publish a paper on their work, a rigorously theorized paper which will address the issue that's driven all my own scholarship for years, the need for social justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I heard those key words, passion and more passion. Thanks very much, Prof. Bui. We actually wrote to each of the panelists. We told them they have 10 minutes within which to let us know their own understanding of the idea of scholarly excellence. And that's what you heard. And in addition to that, we also asked them, how did you navigate to get there? That really, those are the two guiding questions that we get them. Idea of scholarly excellence, and how did you stay focused to achieve some aspect of that excellence? Our second presentation is Mr. Lupiwo Nduzana, who is a qualified medical orthotist. Mr. Nduzana, could you show your face, please? If at all possible. Colleagues, give him a moment to put on your video.
He is on, we can see him.
Is he on? I don't see him.
I can see him.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I can see him.
Thank you. Mr. Nduzana is a qualified medical orthotist, prosthetist. He was recruited as an NGAP lecturer, believe it or not, NGAP lecturer at WSU, and is currently the acting head of the Department of Rehabilitation Medicine in the Faculty of Health Sciences. He was appointed by the Minister of Health, Dr. Mzweli Mkize, to serve as a board member of the Health Professions Council of South Africa, and he has recently been invited to participate in a parliamentary committee to advise government on NHR and medical orthotics and prosthetics. He is a doctoral candidate with the University of Stellenbosch. He will present for 10 minutes and we keep on noting our own comments. We will engage all four of them at the end of the presentations. Mr. Nduzana, you have the floor. Thanks.
Thank you, Prof, for such a nice introduction. With your permission, can I flight a small presentation just to share with the colleagues.
Please go ahead. Your time has started. Thanks.
Right.
We can
Prof, is
see
it
your
visible?
presentation. Continue. Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prof. Colleagues, good afternoon. As Prof. Khan has said, my name is Sisulu. Yes, thank you. I'll be the acting head of department for the rehabilitation medicine. Colleagues, like Prof. Bowie has said, you know, the word excellence was very heavy, but I said what I can do is to try and share my my journey with you, and as Prof. Akpan has said, I have almost 5 years as a lecturer now. I'll finish, this is my 5th year as a lecturer, and I'm very new in the lecturer space. And but I've tried to do some work, to try and get some work done, because I believe I was from the hospital. I used to work at the hospital, at Free Hospital. I knew nothing about being a lecturer or being in academics, so I had to make a quick shift. So what I'll do with my presentation, I'll just share some of my achievements as a lecturer over the past 5 years, which is currently I'm doing my PhD, and it's looking at formulating a national guideline on prosthetic prescription. I won't dwell much on that. And also, I'm involved in collaboration and some international work. Currently, I'm involved in global research for ISPO, which is the International Society for Prosthetics and Orthotics. And I'm also involved in another collaboration work, which is a study done with some of the colleagues in Stellenbosch and some universities in Switzerland. Certainly, I can't say much about this one because we're still conceptualizing it. And as a young lecturer, as I am, I've, under my name, have 2 publications so far. And I've attended a couple of conferences, but the ones that I can mention are the 2 international conferences, and the latest one was on organized by a consortium of universities for global health, which was a very formative conference, and I presented the paper.
Is it only me who has lost? Mr. Mtuzan?
I have also lost him.
We've lost him.
No, the sound is gone.
Yeah, we've lost him.
Yes, we just had load shedding at
Yeah.
maybe
In
he's
Mthatha.
trying.
I see he's leaving. Maybe he's going to try and find another gadget quickly.
All right, let's just give him a few seconds. Prof. Ndebele, if he takes time to return, please introduce the next speaker, and then we will relink him.
Okay, Prof.
Thank you.
Indeed, maybe let me introduce the next panelist, and then we will
Introduce the next
relink.
panelist.
Mr. Mduzana
Yeah.
when he reconnects. Colleagues, our next panelist is Dr. Tobegani Lose. Dr. Lose is the unit head of the Center for Entrepreneurship Rapid Incubator at Walter Sisulu University, where he is also a researcher. This incubator is a strategic venture between SEDA and WSU for the development and sustainability of small to medium enterprises in the Eastern Cape. Dr. Lose's academic qualifications span the fields of business management, business administration, and entrepreneurship management. For over 10 years, Dr. Lose has lectured in business management subjects and has directly and indirectly mentored more than 1,100 small businesses in various provinces across South Africa. As a researcher, he has published 25 academic articles in peer-reviewed journals, delivered papers at conferences nationally and internationally, and has served as external examiner for different universities. Recently in South Korea, Dr. Lose won a Distinguished Research Award for his research work. Colleagues, allow me the pleasure to hand it over the floor to Dr. Lose for his thoughts.
Thank you, Prof, with such a wonderful intro. Colleagues, as you know that we're facing a lot of shedding, so when the previous speaker was speaking, also my power in the office went off. But you know, one of the key features of being an entrepreneur must always have a plan B. So now I'm currently using my phone, and this is my other phone. So that's why there's a light, so it's dark. But without wasting any time, ladies and gentlemen, we're here today to talk about scholarly excellence. What do we mean when we talk about scholarly excellence? I would say from my own experience that there's one thing that I think the point of departure should be, which is knowledge. Knowledge is equal to information. So in order for you to be excellent on what you do, you need to have information, and as a result, the following step is understanding. So whatever knowledge that you acquire, you need to understand it, because you can't excel on something that you don't understand or you don't know. And then the third pillar is wisdom. Wisdom, I classify it as application of the knowledge and understanding that you have. And wisdom is the key feature that is mostly important, because that's where we get the results on when you apply. A lot of my folks and friends, they've told me many things, but they don't do. And the only thing that put me at par, I just apply what they tell me, and then as a result, I become excellent on something. Excellence can be defined in many ways, depending on the site that you have. But as for me, I'm the guy that dwell much mostly on application, because I believe I'm the industry expert. So I believe in practicality of things. My research, or one of the because we're within the academic space, one of the key important features is to, number one, success for academia, I think, is based on research output that you deliver, of course, teaching and learning, a number of students that you produce and you share knowledge with, the number of authors that you publish with. So those are the things that I think is the result of scholarly excellence. Number one, I think I'm a big fan of doing something that most people always ask me. For instance, do you gym? Are you a nerd? Do you like studies? I'm saying, actually, you'll be surprised that I don't like studying, and then I don't like the gym. But the answers for excellency are within there. So what you do every day, it's what will put you apart compared to your peers. So I'm the guy that only respects someone that is doing something. For instance, I can't tell you to do something if I don't do it. So whatever that I put my words into it, then I must apply it, and then I must lead by example. So with that being said, I think for everyone here, students that are here, even my, I'm one of the youth, with my old elders who are here. It is very important that we don't dwell much on the previous successes. So I'm the guy that whatever that I did yesterday doesn't matter now. What I do is what I do. What matters the most is the energy that I have today. Then I ask myself a question: what do I do with the energy that I have? So it's not about the number of publications that I have. I was fortunate enough that I specialized within the field of
I'm on becoming a young academic.
Can you please mute your mic, Mr. Queen? Yeah, thank you. I think, for instance, if you can ask me what what is my drive, I'm driven by opportunities, and then also I'm not good at anything. I'm just driven. I believe because when you are driven, you always. I don't. There's a saying that people always say that you must balance life. I think most people project that to many people. I don't. There's not even one person that I've studied that will talk about balanced life. If you want to excel in something, you have to sacrifice. So number one, for instance, maybe someone balancing life is to maybe go out on a weekend. When you put a goal in front of you, you have to attack it. What do I mean? That you have to work the hours sometimes. That's why normally on the things that I do or the publication that I have, I would sleep 4 hours, 3 hours, because I have a target. Because I believe that life is not about how old you live, it's how impactful you live. A lot of great people that I think they excel in their life, they died when they were younger, but the impact that they did, I think it speaks for itself. So I'm the guy that is always driven by each day I must produce something that is productive, something that I can be proud of, and I think everyone that is here should be driven by that, because a lot of people are concerned by growing old without being impactful within the society that they live in, within the areas that they are situated. So I think where I'm sitting today, I will look back on the things that I did. I am proud, but then again, I still have energy that I have. So that's why I will never stop publication. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think also it is important that we always try to dominate. Don't compete with anyone. Stay in your own lane and try to dominate and be good at what you do. And I believe that if you put the amount of time and effort with because I always say that motivation come and go, but if you are driven and also you put target, you find motivation when you achieve the targets that you have. So I think to me, and maybe to some of the guests here, if you put such effort in what you do, I think you will be excellent in what you do. That's why I'm saying that I'm not good at anything. I'm just driven and on what I do, and then I think a lot of folks will learn. And also, you should never allow yourself to be civilized. What do I mean by that? A lot of people have maybe when you were young, you had these goals that you want to achieve. Let's say you want to have a PhD. Once you achieve it, it's like you are done. You reach a ceiling. And then that's where now you start being not, what's the right word, not being impactful, or I can't respect you because you still have energy. So in everything that you do, there's no end. So so a lot of people, for instance, someone will come to your interview and say that I'll do this and make all these promises, and then when someone maybe leave out of office and say, hey, you need this document, someone say, it's after hours. You can't request this document. So within my mentality, there's no boundaries in terms of hours or weekends. I do something whenever that I feel like, and I just put effort. And then if I set target, I just achieve them, and then I set another target, and then I just achieve them. But in conclusion, I think my 10 minutes is up. In conclusion, it is very important that when you try to do something, I think is the information that we all know this, you look at the friends around you, because I managed to do publication because when I was at BUT, we're a group of 3 young guys. It's like, I think youth will understand this. When you write a song, you feature someone. So you'll find that I write an introduction and the methodology. Someone writes a literature review, and then someone analyzes it. And then we will give that task to each and everyone. You'll find that within a month or 2, we have 3 papers. So we share tasks, basically. It's like a group work. So I'm a big believer of sharing tasks. So those are the things that will drive you to be excellent. But I can go on and on, but I think it's late, and then I will leave there. I think my 10 minutes is up now, but I will be welcome to take more questions. And yeah, and also in conclusion, that it is very important that you have a purpose and what you do and have a vision, because if you don't have a vision, you never know where you're going. So I think a vision and hard working, of course, those are the key principles that I think would lead you to scholarly excellence, and then you keep publishing. So I'm here also, but you'll say that I was here for like the past 5 years. So because of the amount of work that I think I put in, especially when it comes to R&D, because when I came to WOSO before, I saw that someone can say it was a crisis, because when I moved from Joburg to here, someone was like, why are you going there? Even the output there is so low, but to me, I saw that as an opportunity. So that's why I was telling you that it's about sight. So you identify an opportunity that, what if I'm there, I'll become, a top researcher one day. So those are the things that drives me. And then, yeah, thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Lasse. It's really great listening to these words. Yeah, we have a lot to engage you on as we get into the discussion segment of this program. I could see Mr. Duzana's hand. Are you connected now? Are you back?
Yes, Prof, I'm back.
Because we will just gladly give you back your 5 minutes. Okay.
I am
Please,
back,
if you don't mind, yes, just take the 5 minutes and let's go. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Prof. Where I was flagging some of my achievements in the academic space, and to also mention a few, the PG dip in higher education, which I'm currently underway and almost finishing, and I've done quite a couple of short courses. To mention a few, I've done a predoctoral short course, and there's also another good program that is offered by our CLTD in the university, which is championed by Mr. Baleni on professional academic development. I've managed to do a few of those. And also, I've supervised master students, and I'm currently the external examiner and the moderator for the University of Stellenbosch. And this year, I've managed to receive a grant to travel to the United Kingdom for research purposes. And why am I mentioning these things to everyone, Prof? I'm mentioning these things because for me, stepping into academics, it was a new space. And the language was such that you need to be an all-rounded academic. And as such, I've touched a little bit on management. I've done the Helm program, which looks at management. I've published. So it's important that when you step into academics, you become all-rounded. You don't only focus on teaching and learning. Yes, I know teaching and learning is one of our priorities in the universities, and the VC has spoken very much on teaching and learning. But as academics, we need to be all-rounded. We need to be in publishing spaces, collaboration spaces, community engagement. So for me, in these 5 years that I've been here at the university, I've tried to touch a little bit on all of those. And what do I believe constitutes a scholarly excellence? I think for me, the most important thing is curiosity. You know, if you're a curious individual, curiosity gives you the edge. It allows you to want to know more, to want to be more, and want to be, and then be eager, and then want to learn more. I think as young lecturers, that's what is needed from us. Not take lecturing as a job, but take lecturing as a form of as a form of something that gives you an ability to know more, to be more, to contribute more to society. What we're supposed to do as lecturers, bring new information to our people, bring things that are going to help our people, and be impactful in our communities. And what qualities do you really need as an academic, especially as a young academic? Prof. Powell has touched it, and Dr. Loss as well, they've spoken about it. I won't go much on these qualities. It's passion. You need to be passionate about what you do, your work, and the students And the knowledge, because the currency here is knowledge. When you're at university, knowledge is currency. So no more, always be at the edge of the thing. And commitment, which goes with sacrifice. I know I'm heading a department with young lecturers who have got families and young families. So sometimes it can be challenging, especially when it comes to women. I'm not like say they do less than average male, but you need to be considerate in terms of, like Prof. Paul has said, being a single parent. But what we then need to do is to say, how do we enable our female counterparts to accommodate those? Because as fathers, we tend to sometimes neglect the role of parenting, but and then leave it to our fellow women. And it's something that we need not to forget about, but also strive to ensure that we accommodate those things. And courage, we need to have the courage and the zeal as young lecturers. And also, like Dr. Lothar said, we need to be goal-oriented. You need to see yourself in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time. And if you're in pursuit of excellence, like our slogan is university, you can't pursue excellence if you. So as the WUSU community, I need to have a goal which is then going to influence our university so that I can contribute meaningfully. So whenever I go, wherever I am appointed, I always take that for my university, that my university is being recognized. And as young lecturers, it is upon us to have that goal, to have that purpose, to move on. And lastly, Prof, my last slide speaks to challenges and health plans. One of the most common challenges to us as young lecturers is your first publication. I think it's like more like your first million. Your first publication is always a challenge because there are different ways of doing things. But once you do the first one, the second one will come and the third one will come. And also another thing that I've embarked on, which I see it's the challenge, is writing a book. The challenge is that when you write a book, I believe that you need to write something meaningful, something that's going to contribute to our society. And you need not to just write a book for the ratings or write a book for the purpose of writing a book, but it has to be something that is meaningful. And another challenge is time. Whenever I engage in our NCAP meetings, the question that my NCAP manager, Mr. Biden, asks, what do you get the time? I always tell him, I don't have the time. I sleep 4 hours, 3 hours, that is maximum. So that's always, if you're in academic research, young academic, time is always an issue. And the new role of HOT chef, it's challenging, but I need to acknowledge Prof. Blanco, Prof. Alex, Prof. Deji. When I was marking my first master's program, I was so fortunate that when I got the email that appointed me to mark the student, I was seated with Prof. Alex and Prof. Deji. They simplified to me in terms of what to do when you mark a thesis, a master's thesis. So, and that then gave me the idea, which I've been sharing in our NCAP meetings, to say the university needs to have a mentorship program, a mandatory mentorship program, especially for lecturers who are under 30 years, to make sure that these things are impacted to us. They are left to us. Because you have these energetic young lecturers who have a lot of ideas, but they sometimes lack that harnessing of the ideas, that alignment of ideas. So it's something that I know.
1 minute.
Thank you, Prof.
1
also,
minute.
Prof. Afan is working on it. So that in a nutshell, Prof, it's what I think contributes to. I don't use the word for excellence. It's quite a heavy word, but it's what has helped me in terms of propelling me forward as an academic, which I think, like Prof. Bowie has said, that we sometimes, when you go to Kufu College, to tell you that stand in the shoulder of giants. And as an academic, you need to do that. You need to be supported. You can't do it alone. And I'm happy that there are quite a couple of programs which are being introduced to support us as young lecturers, and in particular the NCAP lecturers. I know it comes with a lot of demand being NCAP lecturer because you have to produce and you have to do all these kind of things. But I believe with the support that we have in the university, I'm sure we'll contribute meaningfully to the university. Otherwise, thanks for the opportunity, Prof. And thank you for everyone in attendance. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mzana. As I showed in the chat there, when we were listening to Prof. Bowie, she said, be passionate. And I listened to Dr. Lose, who says, don't trap yourself within boundaries, break out of boundaries. And Mr. Mzana just highlighted and said, be more. So those are keywords that I've extracted from the 3 presentations, and we will have a lot to discuss in a moment. Permit me now to introduce our 4th speaker, not the least. 4th speaker, Professor Willie Chinyamurindi, who is an NRF-rated researcher and head of Department of Business Management at the University of Fort Hare. Prof. Willie considers himself as a Pan-Africanist scholar. His research focuses on what he calls dynamic capabilities amongst individuals, business, and society as a whole. He's a widely published scholar, and some of his work has been featured in local and African media outlets. Prof. Chinyamurindi has a professional membership with the South African Board of People Practices, as well as with the Health Professions Council of South Africa, Psychological Society of South Africa, South African Career Development Association, and Southern African Institute for Management. And by the way, he also serves as a co-chair of the South African Young Academy of Science, SAYAS. Prof. Willie, the floor is yours. Thank you. Unmute. Yeah. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Willie, and thank you all our panelists, Prof. Buib, Dr. Losa, Mr. Nduzana, and Professor Willie. You've really touched on the real core of today's conversation. Colleagues, we are now at the cruising level. You can, I'm following the charts. I can hear lots of comments coming through. Right. I think this is as good a time as any to say, let's go to the discussion forum and engage one another. The four speakers are here with you. They have really, in a way, excited us with some very interesting ideas, very, very personal experiences of theirs. They have made themselves really very vulnerable. They have told us how they did it, what they're still grappling with, and hoping that they will inspire us. And I feel this is the right time for us to get into a meaningful engagement with them. Professor Ndebele, you want to take us to the conversation segment?
Thank you, Professor Akban. Is there any hand? I cannot see any hand. Maybe while I wait for colleagues to raise their hands.
There is a hand now.
Yes, there is a hand. Grina, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. How is everyone doing? I hope everyone is well. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Before I pass my questions, I'd like to pass a special greeting to Professor Akban. He is in fact the gentleman that inspired me to want to come into the academic space and make my contribution. So my questions are two. The first one is around sanity and striking a balance. There has been a lot of talk in the discussion around passion, around being driven towards excellence, and also about, making sure that you are at your best. But this space is a very challenging space because as much as there's great reward, there's also great challenges that come with it, especially on one's mental health. So I'd like to ask the panel, how does one stay sane in all of this pursuit for excellence, in all of this goal or orientation, and in this space generally? Yes, let me stop there for now. I'll perhaps ask the second question at a different time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grina. I will take two more questions, then ask panelists to respond before going on to the next set of questions. Next is Monde, followed by Oliver. I see Monde's hand has disappeared.
Yes, I'm here. I am here.
Okay.
I'm here, Prof.
Okay.
My question is, I was very interested with what Professor Boy was saying in trying to explain, or rather define, excellence, scholarly excellence, because I have a feeling that it's yes, indeed, it is true that when you talk about excellence, you do want to consider that you have to talk about the context in which you are talking about excellence. For example, one of my friends who is from Cameroon will say we are fortunate here in South Africa because you study without having funded by the government. In South Africa, you get funding from the government. In Cameroon, it is a totally different story. And I will usually tell him that we are fortunate that we got the independence later on because we are still benefiting from the white establishment. We don't know what will happen later on. Maybe we might become a failed state. Now, one of the things that she mentioned, Professor Bowie mentioned, is that yes, when you talk about social justice, you do want to consider the situations of the previously disadvantaged, especially as it relates to academic excellence or excellence in general. For example, in the situation of WUSU, you would need to have sort of like a think tank that is going to drive excellence. And once you talk about scholar excellence, you will not leave behind the mandatory role by academics in terms of publishing. How, like, for example, if you say, especially talking to young academics, you would expect 3 papers a year from young academics and stuff, and supply those lecturers with relevant resources. For example, if you talk about also in the case of students, especially from master's student and above, you also talk about the availability of resources, especially for safe sustenance. So I would love Prof. Bowie to elaborate more, because I was interested really in what she was talking about, the issue of context, looking at the previous disadvantage. How does a previous disadvantage institution go about championing the issue of excellence? How do you find you take up space in the midst of the institution like of your roads, and so, who are already established in terms of publishing, in terms of yes, I think I can just stop there.
Thank you. We will have the question from Oliver, then ask the panelists to respond before continuing to the next set of questions. Oliver.
Thanks a lot, Prof. And thank you to everyone for attending. Mine is a bit a simpler question. As young academics, lecturers to be specific, we mostly stand on 3 legs. One will be teaching, which will include supervising and learning. Then the second one will be research, which will include collaboration with nationally and internationally recognized people and publishing in generally good journals. The third one would be community engagement. Asking from a natural scientist perspective, we do have a problem with a third leg of community engagements. For an example, generally when we sample by the sea, rocky shores or in estuaries. Let's take an example of the Transkei region. We take samples from there, we analyze them, we write good papers, and we publish in high impact journals. But the people where we took the samples from, how do they get use of the information? How do they know what you found in their area? Because generally they don't have access to the journals that we normally publish in, due to network problems or due to their knowledge of not being there. And secondly, the jargons that we use in these papers that we write are not as friendly as they would understand from their background. I mean, they speak the traditional languages and not the science that we write. So I would like the panelists to try and take us through that and try and make us engage with the communities that we work with. Because generally, the research we do in the marine sector would be best if it would be for sustainable resource use, which the people who use them are general people who stay close to the sea. Now, when you take samples and publish in high impact journals for international people, they read, they understand. But the locals that are staying by the sea don't understand a thing. They just see us there and we're gone and that's it. So how do you navigate the space of community engagement? Should we, in our science, in our natural science, have a social scientist who will relay the information to the people back there, or how can we navigate into that space? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oliver. Colleague panelists, the 3 questions have been raised. One is specifically addressed to Professor Bowie, but the other 2 is addressed to all of you. Who would like to go first?
Can I go first? Because I'm about to have load shedding.
We'll be having load shedding soon, yes.
Okay, I'd like to respond to that excellence in context and what does it mean at an HDI. And I'd like to very quickly share a story. When I joined Rhodes University, I was appointed as Director of Academic Development, and they appointed me at associate professor level. But I was told I couldn't use the title. And when I asked why, they said, "What are you going to profess in?" So I had the job of, if you like, persuading them that the field I worked in, higher education studies, was a field of academic endeavour. But I worked with colleagues and none of them even had a master's degree. So they were all embarking on master's degrees. So together as colleagues, we had to build the field and build ourselves. And we did that in a very collegial way. Every morning we used to drink tea. And when we drank tea, we used to talk theory. Somebody used to write theory on the board with diagrams explaining. So we had this collegial, collaborative effort to try to develop each other. All my colleagues now from those days, they're now professors. And what really amuses me is that when the university was putting in a bid for a centre of excellence to the NRF a few years ago, one of the centres that they identified was our centre. So we'd come from nothing to being a possible centre of excellence. But we did that by working collegially, by academics with no power. We had no power in the institution. We were marginalized. Who are those people in academic development? We worked together to develop each other with our own initiatives, our own talking, our own studying together, and we did it. So you can do that too, I would think.
Thank you, Professor Bowie. Other colleagues, can you come in? Colleagues, anytime Professor Bowie can be disconnected, but we hope ESCOM will delay the load shedding. Thank you, Willie. Colleagues, how do we remain sane? Teaching and learning, research, community engagement. Any panelists who would like to take that third question?
Yes, Prof.
Yes, Tobegan.
That's a very good question, Prof, because even that's why I started this writing notes to newspapers. Like what I'm trying to do, maybe take some of the results and key findings that I normally do with my research. So I try to make key points within the newspaper articles because I think the community has more access to that. So I think that's one strategy that someone can use. When you publish a paper, take that paper, paraphrase it a bit, and write newspaper articles so that you can achieve relevant individuals. Number two, it's your responsibility as well as a researcher that you are aware of the trends and events and sessions that are happening within your field. What I normally do, business incubation, for instance, that's where my specialty is like. So, being as well, used to work for CEDA, I normally share it with, because I know, normally there's, the industry players. I share all of my articles to the relevant stakeholders. So if they read it or not, but at least I share. And then when I do, because when you get the respondents, you tell them, no, I'll share the paper, even your thesis, make sure you make it available. So I think it's our responsibility as the researchers to when you publish the paper, because you will have it. And also some of the journalists indicated that some of them you pay them. ResearchGate is there, because all of my research output, I always, when they send it to me, I put it there so that it can be accessible, because not everyone has the means. So I think that we should attend conferences, try to present your paper. It can be in a slide format, findings that you find so that people are aware. I think those are the strategies that we could apply. And then I think there was a question in terms of balance. As I indicated earlier, that sometimes, when you want to do something, you have to sacrifice some hours or some parties or anything that, would distract you. And sometimes you can be, normally I take camps, you go away for a weekend and then you just work on your research, because I think, the noise and pollution around our communities are too much. So I think those are the key things that works for me. I find a quiet place that I can do my work. Of course, you sacrifice some, there and there. You can even tell your spouse that, this following week you'll be on a camp research, whatever you want to call it, but to be away within the TV, get rid of certain things that they don't play part within the path that you are trying to take. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. The next two sets of questions, the first one will come from Nosisi, followed by Nelly. Prof. Akpan, is there another third hand? I think Igcina's hand
Only
is an
the
old
ones
hand.
you just mentioned. Yeah, the others are old. But let's take the two now.
Nosisi.
Thank you, Prof. Ndebele. Thank to our panelists and for such great presentations. Mine is not a question, but it's comments. I was hoping then Prof. Bauer will be also still be available in terms of research and the context in which you conducted and where you publish, and the realities out there in terms of the expectations that are still influenced by the history of the country itself. When one applies for rating, and which we Black people were not given an opportunity to get into for a long time, especially South Africans, you have to prove that you have published in the international recognized journals. You have to prove that you have published in these journals, and therefore it will be very desirable from us to publish in our South African journals. However, it doesn't benefit us, as we are these academics that were previously not having access into being respected in the research fraternity. The second one is about what was asked by my colleagues about the research, conducting research in the marine with the people out there, but publishing papers and all that. Firstly, for me, what came jumping in my mind is unethical research. The colleague was describing unethical research. We researchers need to be ethical. Yes, we have a history of unethical researchers, but we cannot continue with that field of conducting unethical research, going to our people, observing and even getting knowledge from them and never recognize them and never acknowledge where we got it and own what it is not ours, it's stealing. Secondly, if the research I conduct in the water will benefit my people, why is it not belonging to them? Why are they not important? Why am I not writing to the places where they will get information? What about having an article in the newspapers? What about having a talk on Umhlobo Wenene so that they know exactly what I have learned there? It is my responsibility as a researcher, not a university, not anyone else, to be African and ethical. So I feel like those are very important. Then the juggling between work, research, and teaching and learning. I hear colleagues, but the first presenter here, who is from Fortier, no, he was not the first. He clearly said there are sacrifices we have to make. When you take this field and say, I am going to be a lecturer, you are taking an oath that I will learn continuously. And therefore, you cannot go to a class without doing research about what you are going to deliver. You cannot go into a class and deliver things that are not influenced by the society we lived in, because what you are doing to that student, you are making that student unaligned and also not being a person who will be able to work in the community. So these come together. All we need to know as we move forward, how to bring them together so that they do not become a burden, so that they do not become a mountain in front of you. So it's all about conceptualizing your job differently and see it as a job where you have to profess until you die. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nasisi. Comments and advice well taken indeed. Nelly is next, followed by Zweli Jongile. Over to you, Nelly.
Thank you, Prof. And
I'm not sure if I have lost Nelly, colleague.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
You have disappeared again.
Oh my God.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Looks
I
like we have
realized from the
Oh, okay.
I realized
Continue.
the part
You are
still together, Dr. Shockley?
Yes, Prof, I am here. Can
Okay, try. You're coming
Okay.
in and out. Yeah.
Maybe we should ask you,
Prof,
Nelly,
you
to type in the chat box.
Type in the,
Okay.
yeah. Meanwhile, Prof, you can take anyone else, yeah, who is
Yes,
able to speak.
Zweli Jongile, can you come in while Nelly is typing?
No, Prof, mine was a mistake in hand. I didn't raise it.
Oh.
I made a mistake to put it on. Otherwise, I didn't have a question. Thank you, Prof.
Means our third person is Nulin. Before we give to
Okay.
the panel.
Thank you so much, Prof. And I would like to thank presenters for an insightful and inspiring presentations that they've given us. From my own observation also my own experience, I'm always puzzled. My question is thrown to our 4 or 3 presenters. It seems like there are hurdles or challenges for emerging researchers when it comes to publishing in local journals than in international journals. So my question is, does it mean to say this area is another area that needs to be transformed or decolonized for Black emerging researchers to be also considered when it comes to publishing in local journals? Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Over to our panelists.
Thank you, Professor Pure, if I may go.
Yes.
In fact, what Doc is raising, it's a question I was going to pose to everyone at large in terms of how do you pursue scholarly excellence in a decontextualized context? Because my fear is like, for example, what Mr. Oletu was speaking to say, how do we disseminate what we gather, the data that we gather for people to benefit? So how do you contextualize that to say their work should not, the meaning of their work should not necessarily be measured by the publication, but rather to have an impact in the people that we do. So my question was going to be aligned to what Doc has just raised, that how do we, in pursuit of this, but pursue it in a decontextualized manner and not try in a way to emulate other things, but do it for ourselves, by ourselves, in our own way. It's a question and answer, Doc. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Lupio. The other panelists, your views on the 2 questions.
Oh, have we lost it?
We can hear him. Thank you. Colleagues, as we move towards closure, we'll take the last set. I can see there are 3 hands. And then, first of all, it will be Nolutando, followed by Olebuheng and Grina, if it's not an old hand. Nolutando. Unmute. Ole, can you come in while Nolutando is trying to unmute?
Thank you, Prof. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
All right. I have noted. The questions that were arising around the macro politics of research and publishing. That we need to publish in high impact journals or international journals in order for us to be recognized, which can also be considered unethical. And Professor Feza also referred to the unethical conduct of researchers in not sharing their findings with the participants of the research. My question is, or I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment, what about the ethics of the institution as a corporate agent that does not allow itself to be a site of research? And I'm sure Professor Ndebele would relate to my challenges in relation to this. And some of the lecturers taking advantage of the attitude and behavior of the corporate agent in not availing themselves and their teaching and learning space as a site of research. This is also unethical, and I believe that if we are to get into pathways to excellence, Walter Sisulu as a university needs to reflect and correct such an unethical conduct. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ole. Nolutando, are you? Yes, Nolutando, proceed.
Yes. Yes, I've unmuted myself. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for such a wonderful words of encouragement. I just want to make a follow-up to what the previous speaker have said. It's not a question to me, it's a comment to colleagues that the university is a center of excellence. By the fact that you take the job as a lecturer, for an example, you've made an agreement between yourself and the academic community of your field that you are actually going to achieve that excellence. If people can actually also visit some other universities in some other countries, it's compulsory that when you are going to teach, you must have a PhD. So guys, we should make sure that we mentor our junior academics. I'm not talking about support staff because I don't have an experience on that, but it's very difficult to break through to the inroads of research, of excellence teaching, of community engagement. And also there's what we call in public administration, academic citizenship, where you work with peers, not only locally, even internationally, so that you can reach that excellence. We need to find time. We need to make sure that we groom our junior lecturers. That's what I want to say. It takes a long time to finish PhD when you are teaching, but if you are committed to that excellency, you attend teaching workshops, you attend PhD proposal writings, you attend supervisory workshops, you do that while you are working full time. You find time to do that. But I know that there's a lot of gatekeepers. There are a lot of, as the previous speaker have said, the university should do something about people who are conducting unethical research and those who are also not supporting university policies pertaining to what they're supposed to be doing. If you are ordering some devices or tools to conduct research or software, and then you are told that so and so has to sign, it takes 6 months, because all these grants and the calls, they've got deadlines to do research. So the university should make sure that people who are conducting research for excellence are also protected. because it's really frustrating to work in an environment where there are 100 gatekeepers. Everywhere you go, there's a gatekeeper, there's a gate, and nobody's doing nothing about it. That is quite unethical. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Is it a new hand?
Thank you very much to everyone present here this evening. Mine is no longer a question, it is just a comment, or rather an addition to the answers around dissemination of findings beyond just high-level journals and conferences and these, for lack of a better word, elite spaces that we find ourselves as academics. So for me, it's three things. The first one is making yourself as the researcher available and accessible. What are the benefits of that? The benefits of that is that you are going to reach audiences beyond just the academic space. For instance, you can do a simple activity as going to community meetings, especially when it's communities that are trying to find solutions that are entailed in the research that you are doing. I happen to be in the community development space, and I work at the University of the Free State, Qwaqwa campus. It's a very rural community, and the knowledge that comes out of the research that we do in the community is quite needed there. So it is important that we also make ourselves available to those communities. And also another way of disseminating research to the research participants or to local communities would be getting in touch with community-based organizations, because I believe research is about finding solutions to pressing problems or about exploiting opportunities that exist. I, for one, happen to be in the space of community development, and it is important then to get in touch with local NGOs, to get in touch with local community-based organizations, so that perhaps through your research they could find ways to strengthen their practice and their orientation in the work that they do. So my overall point around dissemination of findings is making yourself available according to those three ways that I've suggested. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Zina colleagues. 2 comments and 1 question. A university as a center of research encourages its academics to go out there and conduct research. But when people want to enter its own space, there's a gatekeeper at every corridor. How do we deal with that? Facilitators, panelists, anyone who would like to give a response, or anybody in the audience? Willie, is that you? Thank you, Willie. It's a question to leadership colleagues. Any other thoughts from facilitator panelists before I hand over to Professor Akpan, or any inputs he has?
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
I mean, I think the previous speaker was alluding on the researchers aiming to publish international journal is true. I think actually I felt guilty about it, because if you check at my publication as well, I found it very difficult actually to publish to South African journals. Of course, I never explore, real reasons why behind it, but I've had some, colleagues and friends, saying, speculating. But I think it's an issue, actually, especially within entrepreneurship and business management and incubation field. So I think it's one of the things, maybe, I always say that it's a crisis, but I think also it's an opportunity even for the center that I'm actually heading, and also the university perhaps, to try and find some ways maybe to have its own journal. I don't know, I'm sure issues ranges from, maybe South African journals, maybe they don't have enough capacity or funding, or of course, decolonized, maybe because it's run by established universities, etc. So I think there's an element of truth there. So it's one of the things that actually, as academia, we should push and try to even if it's a source fund to have our own journals within different faculties and field. And the issues of gatekeepers and research is one of the things that we all experience, and we hope to find ways, because sometimes even to get these ethical clearance is not easy. You will spend a month not getting the actual clearance, whereby you already have gone far with your studies. Maybe you're in chapter 2 or chapter 3. So it's one of the things that maybe we should empower people, because some people don't want to commit. They feel like if you want to do research, it's more like a journalism, you want to expose them, I think. So I think, although you indicated there that the information that we have is going to be used only for academic purposes, but I see some resistance there. I think it's more about awareness. People don't want to put a signature. So I think also my last from my side is to thank also the leadership from our research office. I'm new here, so I don't know what was there before, but I've seen some interesting project like a postdoc and also research collaboration. So it's one of the things that actually we also as the center will try to push and also get young academics in publishing.
Yes.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, colleagues. At 6:31, is I hand over to the pilot to crash land. Professor Akpan.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Professor Ndebele. We're actually going to land the plane in a moment. I tell you, just fasten your seatbelt. We're going to touch on in a moment. Look, this has been a very, very illuminating meeting, and I'm really very excited to have heard from our 4 panelists. They're really giving of themselves. As I said, they've made themselves vulnerable. They've told us how they can. We started by speaking about pathways. And the one thing we know about pathways is that they lead you from point A to B. The other thing you know about pathways is that they're full of stumbling blocks. That's what has come out of this conversation. But ultimately, it is that if you master the road, you will definitely get to destination. And I think that is what our panelists have tried to share with you. They've emphasized things like passion. They've emphasized things like stay the course, engage. Where it looks like the door is kind of closed, find a way to kick it. That is what Prof. Willie just shared with us and tell us join the Academy of Sciences, the Young Academy of Sciences, and you might be able to find the critical mass to be able to kick open some of these doors. This has been a very, very enlightening conversation, and I have no doubt that they have been able to inspire someone. As we land the plane, I want to call on our Deputy Vice Chancellor for Institutional Support, Dr. Prince Jata, to please give us a vote of thanks, and we will land the plane. DVC, please.
Thank you very much, Prof, for the opportunity. Mine is really to give a vote of thanks to a very exciting engagement among the colleagues. Our panelists have really indeed shared their experience, their journeys onto their academic growth, and they've also indicated how excellence can be defined differently by different individuals. And I am convinced that each and everyone who have participated here, who have been listening, have managed to have a take home to say whatever that you are doing. You can learn from the colleagues, and you can see that really, in terms of the road to success, there are very a few kind of differences. If you commit yourself, then you'll be able to make it. I would like to thank the engagement, Professor Akpan, the rich engagement that has taken place among the colleagues. And I want to ask you, Professor Akpan, when you talk about, which is something that you have been saying when we're busy preparing for this, talking about a town hall style of engagement. And is this what you are referring to? And for me, this is the best. Everybody has got a take home. Everybody can have an input. We listen to the people making their inputs, but we also have got the opportunity for each and every individual to make a comment and to make a suggestion as we take this way forward. Is that what you are thinking? I was very excited about it, this town hall comment. Is that what you are expecting, Professor Akpan?
You've got it, Doc. You've got it, exactly. It's very relaxed, yes.
Thank you very much. And that is what we really need to do, so that at least it's an engagement that is very live. Everybody can participate. Anybody can have a take home. I would like to take this opportunity, of course, and thank our panelists, the 4 panelists that have come in and make the presentation, which was very exciting, and it created a lot of debate from among the colleagues. I want to thank Walter Sisulu colleagues that have participated, Walter Sisulu academics that were part of this engagement. We are continuing with this, and also the colleagues, friends from outside that have joined. And we really appreciate it, and we'll continue to encourage them to come and join as we continue in this process. As we have indicated, Professor Akpan and Professor Ndebele, that we've got a series of activities that we have put together. We are celebrating our 100 days for our Vice Chancellor. For our Vice Chancellor, we are building a momentum towards an inauguration of our Vice Chancellor, and at the same time, we are setting ourselves a footprint towards our academic, in fact, towards our strategic plan, and we're very excited about it. So we really appreciate that, the participation of the colleagues on this, and we'll continue to do that. Friends from outside, will always invite them. I do not think there is any limit in terms of who can join and who cannot join as far as these are concerned. We'll continue to share with our colleagues, and we really appreciate it, and the work continues. And thank you very much, colleagues, for the participation. And of course, the lady of the moment, our Vice Chancellor, I'm sure she's here. She's enjoying this as we are cruising. This is the plane that we are landing now, but of course, we're going to be taking off very soon on another one, so that we make sure that this journey is as enjoyable as possible towards the inauguration of the Vice Chancellor. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much to everybody for participating. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DVC, and thank you very much, colleagues, and have a blessed evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, colleagues.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.